Some people are actually afraid that they could die in that moment. And then they just get some like 50-cent ice cream cone. But I get it.
Yeah.
I get everything. I get absolutely everything. Well, you're not just saying you're getting everything doesn't excuse it. I get that too. Humor is not a good excuse. I get that. And I get the opposite. And I get this. And I get that. I get it all. I literally stand outside of every single conceivable paradigm that's ever been conceived or will conceive.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Mind Under Matter, the only podcast that you're listening to right now. We are doing part 3 of a political survey. Maybe people are listening to 2 podcasts at the same time. There's probably someone out there. I might have been slightly inaccurate. We're doing part 3 of this test. If you're listening for the first time, this is this show usually stands alone pretty well, but this specifically is part 3 of something. So go back and watch the first one. Watch or listen to the first one to set all this up. So this is, it's called politicalcompass.org. We're just going through, there's a list of statements, and we put strongly agree, disagree, agree, strongly agree. It's meant to kind of discover where you are politically is what this is for. What we use it for is fodder for conversation and philosophical discussion. I really think that, did you just see my light change? Yes.
A little bit. Also, what is fodder? I use the word, but is it like grist for the mill? Is it like coal? What does the word fodder mean? Like, I imagine it as like wood chips or something, like some kind of thing that you use to
stop using that. Give fodder.
No, I like fodder.
Especially dried hay or feed. This is like hay for conversation. There we go. My lights are back. Technical difficulties at Mum Studios today.
To those of you just listening, lights are a collection of photons which blast out at humans and then reflect back into the eyes of humans so that they can see each other. That's the only application of lights.
Wow. That was some mind-blowing science.
Yeah, I talked to a lightologist yesterday.
You said that and then I'm like, wait, did you though? Because I could see you talking to a lightologist.
Yeah, there's probably some new age person who I gotta start talking to more new wave people. Maybe I can interview like Devo. I'll interview members of the Talking Heads, members of, I mean, what's another new wave group? Blondie.
Maybe someone was just saying we should do a music episode sometime. So
I'd love to.
Maybe we'll have that coming up. You're gonna have to pull a lot of weight there. I don't feel like I'm terribly knowledgeable about music. I did just go. I highly recommend going to, if you're in LA, going to the Pink Floyd exhibit.
I want to. Yeah,
it's real good. It's actually kind of awesome that it's like. A silver lining of COVID, I'll say, is that if it weren't for COVID, because they like space out how often they let people in, if it weren't for COVID, it would have been uncomfortably busy while I was there. But instead, I got to sit and stand at every exhibit for as long as I want without feeling like rushed through. And I think it could have been a little chaotic otherwise, but it's super good. You a Pink Floyd fan?
Yeah. Not as big as you, though.
Yeah.
I think they're higher on the list than you, but I definitely say I like the Floyd. I love the Gilm. I love the Watt.
Yeah.
I love I don't even know the other members. I only know David Gilmour and Roger Waters, so I'm missing
God, how am
half the group.
I'm just having a brain fart right now. As it was well,
And I know all the members of the Time. So does that mean I like
Nick
the
Mason
Time?
is who I was trying to think of.
Is that
Sid
the drummer?
Barrett was the early one that got replaced. Yeah. And Richard Wright. Nick Mason, I usually remember. I don't know
Nick,
why I didn't.
Roger, Sid, and David.
Yeah. Richard Wright died in 2008.
Damn.
Age 65. But
I think that's when Michael Jackson died. No, he was 2012 or something.
Well, it's fantastic. I like Pink Floyd quite a bit. It was just nice to see how such an epic thing came together, and a lot of the choices that they made along the way are well documented, and there's footage of and stuff. And that's something about getting that big is you have a lot of biographers,
Oh, yeah.
And the only thing is they didn't talk about, I don't know if they just didn't want it to be a bummer or didn't get approval or what, but they never talked about David Gilmour and Roger Waters and why they broke up. About why they split. They never talked about that at all. Even the Sid stuff, they were pretty light on. They brushed it aside.
So it's G-rated in a way.
He had some issues, and then yeah, I guess. But
politics, inner band politics are funny. Not that it's about who they vote for, but it's with their creative choices and things like that. And a band staying together for a decade is a huge accomplishment.
I mean, I'm trying to think of a fight that you and I could get in that even 10 years later, you couldn't get us on stage together for $50 million. Which is how much they'd easily make if they just got together on stage, and just be at opposite sides of the stage. Don't even look at one another, just play the songs, do something. But
you could have a psychotic episode and try to murder me with a broken bottle, and I still feel like I would podcast with you the next day.
Yeah. If I was sane and tried to murder you, that's when I think that's a little too far. But yeah, if I have a little episode, maybe just a quick try at murdering you, I think that's pretty forgivable.
Even if you did that to my whole family, there's still a number, $4,000. You don't even have to give me $5,000, just $4,000. I would do it. I would take the stage again. But I think we'd have to be giant to know what the psychology of that is, because maybe their brains break from being so big, and just you and I are not big.
Mm-hmm.
We're deep ocean little fish that are maybe we'll get to see a little bit of light one day. But right now we're just kind of at the bottom, swimming and generating our own light and eating.
Yeah, I hope we have fights that they have too, which are Gilmour's old Raj wrote that money song from a mansion where he lives, lots of property. So I don't know.
I like that.
Roger's very political. Gilmour is seemingly very apolitical, and Gilmour's a real riffer, it seems. And
guitar wise or speaking wise?
Speaking wise,
no, he's not a riffer that much guitar wise, I would say.
Gilmour?
No, I mean he makes riffing, not in the sense of I guess that's not the word. He's atmospheric. He creates these big soundscapes. Yeah. He's not like a riff ditty kind of thing.
Yeah. But it's definitely if you go to see Gilmour live, you're going to see a lot of doodling around and a little bit of play and stuff. And if you see Roger Waters live, it's an intense experience. And every single second has been calculated exactly. And it's just, it's two very different vibes, and they're so perfect together. But speaking of two people at odds with one another, and finding things to agree on. I really like these. I like these political statements because these are the sorts of things that more conversation should be I think we've already kind of said this. More conversation should be stuff like this. That's just more about life views generally. And I think much of the political conversation, because it's centered around the news of the day, it's just one, it's fresh anyway. And then there's just incentive to get fired up about it, it seems. And it seems, I don't know. I feel like I could have political conversations like this with just about anybody. But if you talk about like Obama or Trump or something like, specifically something, then it's that becomes harder. Do you have an easy time talking about politics and stuff with your family, or do you guys?
Yeah, I think because I also don't have a strong stance in one. That's not the right word.
It's such a relief to not have a strong stance on every single thing, though. Like, do you need to have a strong stance on like abortion and industrial farming? Like, maybe not.
And
maybe.
I guess I do have a strong stance on abortion, but not in a way that I don't see. Like, I can imagine what it's like to be someone on the other side of it. I can imagine like thinking that's just reprehensible, but it's not like, no, I think it's right in the middle, and therefore half of the country should never be allowed to have any abortions, half should have exactly. And people get upset at even the thought of like, you're calling both sides the same, you're a fence sitter, you're exactly in between. And it's weird to articulate like it's not quite that. And it's not that I think I stand outside of everything, and I don't think I'm above everything. It's some other Weasley statement I'm trying to come up with that gets me off the hook.
It's some good weaseling.
Yeah.
That's some solid weaseling.
I think that's what I am. That's my political standpoint. But I just don't want to get worked up about stuff. And I've been around a while. Like, I remember people getting worked up about Obama, worked up about Bush, worked up about, of course, worked up about Trump. That's like the most worked upable guy there is. But you get
his whole intention was to get people worked up.
Yeah.
He didn't even care if it was good or bad. It was just like, get everyone whipped up.
Every second. Yeah. Don't miss a day. But when you see like, when friends and family die and you see that it had nothing to do with any of the day-to-day water cooler politics, you're like, oh, there's bigger things than these things. It's best to kind of enjoy what little time we have here.
Yeah, again, I think that we're kind of in agreement too, that like, where do I stand politically? Well, ask me about the issue. Ask me a specific thing and I can tell you. Otherwise, like, I just don't check every single box down any party line or whatever. And
the episode art for the first episode of this 4-part series, where I depicted like the blue flag person is foaming at the mouth, and then the red flag person also foaming at the mouth. That doesn't mean I'm like in the center of them. I might be kind of closer to the foaming at the mouth person on the left than I am the foaming at the mouth on the right. But the key is not to foam.
Going.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't like foaming? Oh,
I don't like anyone that's foaming at the mouth. I like to keep them away from me.
That's life advice that's never been given before. Like, I don't know. Maybe have you tried foaming at the mouth, like that kind of rage?
It is what's expected. It is what a lot of people are getting up to.
We also had, if you didn't get a chance to listen to the bonus episode, if you're considering supporting us on Patreon, it's a really good one because we took this right-wing authoritarian scale, and it was like every statement was insane. It was like they were all a joke. There wasn't that much conversation to be had there. It like started as a like outrageous, divisive statement. Whereas these ones that we're doing, politicalcompass.org, by the way, they're not like sponsoring us or anything. I just asked someone for a good site to go to, a political scientist, and they recommended this. But if you want to play along with us, you can fill
and enter in code MUM to get extra leftist points. So if you score like somewhat like towards the center, if you use code MUM, you get a little bit of left bonus because
perfect.
Mm-hmm.
The toward the correct side of things.
Yeah, the left did win the culture wars, and maybe the wars are still going on, but like when you look around, it's conservative values are not hip, and understandably so.
No.
It's the like, you know, Alex P. Keaton buttoned up like free market, like it's not cool. Like the left has got it, and someone had some funny quip of the left won the culture wars. Now they're just driving around and shooting the survivors.
Yeah. I mean, to me, my bias is that the right just seems more dogmatic to me. But people say that about the left as well, and I have to like.
I think it's
I
playing
have to
with
assume that that's like it's so easy for any one of us to be like, that other side's the dogmatic one. I firmly believe that there's nothing that you could say to convince me otherwise. Thinking that side is dogmatic is my actual God, and I worship it.
Well, you think of the right, or not think of the right, but the right is the one which has more religion involved with it. And when you think of dogma, what's more dogmatic than religion? So of course they get that. But then when you get to the authoritarian left side of things, then it becomes its own new religion, and new religions are always popping up left and right. And like religion means that you're born with some kind of original sin and you can't get rid of it unless you read this book and follow this way and don't question anything. So when you can't question stuff, then it's more dogmatic.
Yeah, I had this guy on Here We Are, Peter Boghossian. He was a nice guy. We went to dinner and stuff. He treated me very well. He was an odd character, and he's one of these like. He struck me as someone that was very interested in becoming famous, and he also was just like real revved up about like he wants to be in the intellectual dark web cult and stuff, or club rather. And sorry,
that's not hard. Just like look at what opinions you have to have, and then just go spread them.
So he worships all those guys. I think he's one of the guys that did the pseudo penis like fake study. There's some joke study saying that that penises are a cultural construct or something. Like he made
not mine, baby. Real as apple pie.
Study as apple pie. You're confusing sayings. As real as apple pie.
Tick, tick, tick.
It's so anyhow, I have him on. He's all excited to tell me I feel like I'm gonna be talking shit here, but he's all excited to tell me this groundbreaking theory that he has and everything, and it was all about that the woke movement is the new religion. And you know, he was a guest. I don't like argue with my guests or anything. I like asked him questions and just let him say his piece, but I did keep on going like, but what do you mean religion? Like there's a very different thing between thinking perhaps too extremely that minorities are underserved or face higher rates of discrimination, and like maybe there's like an overcorrection or something like that. You could make a case for that, but how is that a religion? That's not a religion. Like Hinduism is a religion. No. That's not a. I mean, it's not even. It's not. It's like. It's just not the right word to classify.
I think what he's trying to say is the that some of the ultra woke people are kind of like the church ladies of the 80s. Because in the 80s, like the Republicans were all about canceling stuff because how dare you put Jesus's name in vain, or this is got the devil in it, that kind of thing. And then when the ultra woke is cancely, then there's the parallel between the church ladies of then. But yeah, I agree with you as far as it being an actual religion. Which nothing wrong with religions unless you're doing something wrong. Nothing wrong with it inherently.
Yeah.
There's like anyone on any team or any ideology can be annoying or toxic or problematic based on how far you take it and how little you're willing to listen. Because you might still you might not be on the right side of history yet. You might still be calibrating like, okay, right side of history, almost, too much this way. Okay, overcorrect this way. Back. But some might say that an overcorrection is better than no correction at all.
Right, of course. I mean, it's just that another one of my biases is that at least the lens that I view history through is kind of along the lines of what you're saying. And I think lots of people like Mark Twain and stuff had wonderful quotes about this, but just things just tend to go more progressive. I mean, we learn more, we get more information, we gain more experience, not just as individuals, but culturally. The cultural transmissions get fine-tuned more and more as time goes on. There's always going to be like some regressions here and there in different parts of the world and cultures and periods of elections and stuff like that. You know, it's not a straight linear thing, but I mean, it's hard to stop progress. It's like, how do we stop you can take a bunch of people not even trying to learn. You're still going to learn things over time.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
When I think of it as and we've discussed how the dichotomy of left and right is so limited, but it's hard to define what each one stands for. Mm-hmm. Like on first thinking, it's like maybe the left is all about ending injustice and then the right is all about freedom. But then when you break that down, you're like, well, why is there no freedom for abortion? Why is there no freedom for I mean, what's another example there? But you know, it's not all about freedom, but it's just a branding thing.
And it's obviously there's hypocrisy on both sides and everything, but that is something that.
But more on the right, we are extreme leftists. I got to reiterate that we're farther left than Bernie. We make Bernie Sanders look like he's who's the most right-wing guy? Right-wing Smith.
You have an impression of several right-wingers that you
but like politicians, I don't know, Ted Cruz, but he's maybe center-right. But who's like when they think of the right, like Judge Clarence Thomas or something?
Yeah, maybe.
Rick Santorum.
I mean, I still think it's useful to point out hypocrisy because if nothing else, anytime I see someone being hypocritical in a party that isn't it's at least when I'm my best self, I do try to think to myself, I wonder what aspects of my beliefs that I'm missing the mark on and being a hypocrite on, and that's it's like when I was on You Made It Weird, I shared, and maybe I've told you before, but it was the last time I was in the psych ward when I
in 2020 June.
Yeah, in 2020. It was, there were people in there that going through similar things that I was, but like kind of permanently, or they're like much further, and seeing an exaggerated version of that made me like, seeing the errors that they were making helped me see the cognitive errors that I was making in myself.
A real life extrapolation of where you would be if you continue down this path.
Yeah. It's just like, oh, that's why you make that like mistake of like getting triggered in this certain way, or everything looking like a puzzle. And so anyway, in that same way, I do think that there's nothing wrong with being a little bit critical. And you can learn about yourself too by being critical of others and yourself.
Critical of opinions, but not of the person as a human being. Like, because I think about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, like that's a good person to be, like, where you vote a certain way, but you're still friends with Clarence Thomas. You still go horseback riding. You play resistance with him. You give him a Charlie horse. You call him an idiot, whatever. Like, but you're still friends. You still got him a cupcake for his birthday. You're not like the reprehensible. You're not egging his house. You're not wishing he has diarrhea forever. Yeah, maybe you give him a laxative if he wins a vote on a serious issue, but
Sure.
But other than that, like, I always liked that she was friends with the complete opposite end of the spectrum. And I was thinking about that in terms of, I was making a picture of this. I haven't put it out yet, but the idea behind the people that are really doing it are cool with everybody. Like in music, like some country fans might be enemies with hip hop heads or metal heads or something, but then at the top level, like the hip hop artists, the country artists, everything, they're all friends with each other, because
that's interesting.
Yeah, they're professionals. They do this for a living. They enjoy each other's work, even if it's different. But it's at the bottom rungs where they're squabbling and at war.
Yeah, maybe we need more horseback riding. I think it's the solution.
It hurts my coccyx. I haven't done it enough. But you know the coccyx, not the dick, but the bone that's like at the bottom of the tailbone. COCYX. Yeah, it's painful. But maybe it's because I haven't ridden enough horses. I've only ridden horses twice.
I haven't been in a while. My last serious relationship, very early on in the relationship, we were traveling like somewhere awesome, like Bend, Oregon or something like that. We had like a little cabin and out, seeing nice scenery and everything. And I was like, oh, we should go horseback riding. And then she just laughed like a lunatic at my idea of horseback riding. And I was like, okay, no horseback riding for you. Like,
what does she like to do?
Is that? I don't. That's a funny way to respond. I'm like,
what's your
horseback
idea?
Riding? What do you like?
Yeah, it's so fun and romantic and magical, and maybe people think like, well, I'm not a millionaire. It's like, no, but you pay $20 and you can go ride this horses over here.
It's incredible.
They like it. They go eat the grass, even if you tell them not to. Even though the instructor says, you got to kick them really hard. It's okay. It won't hurt them. They're horses. You can't kick them hard enough to actually cause them pain, but they can't be eating all that grass. They'll get sick. And then I tried really hard, but my horse, his name was Lil Bro. He just couldn't stop eating grass. He just ate all the grass.
The only people that are allowed to not like horses are people that were raised with horses. And they're just like, they have PTSD from chores, from having to shovel manure and stuff, which I've met someone like raised around horses, and they're just like, yeah, they're fine.
My friend's dad was
okay.
Did
whatever.
we already talk about this? My friend's dad was killed by a kick in the head from a horse. And it's weird hearing that as a 12-year-old because it sounds so funny. And then you're like laughing because you think he's making a joke, and he ain't making a joke at all.
I mean, there's something funny about it in a way, like whenever life just does the most random, insane tragedy, it's like there's some sort of self-defense mechanism in there that needs to laugh that off. Otherwise, now I just live in the world where I could walk outside, I could get kicked in the head by a horse, and then I'm done.
Yeah. That's like
That's
if you were doing
horrible.
a handstand and then an asteroid just came and flew in through your ass and then like punctured through your heart and brain.
It'd be amazing.
It's so random.
Sad that I'm dead, but amazing. Like random chance happening.
Yeah.
I mean, Do you want to die randomly, or do you want to die? Do you want to like be 90 and be like, all right, well, I get to say bye to everyone? And
of course, the say bye to everyone.
Say bye to everybody.
Yeah, randomly sucks balls.
Yeah, randomly sucks.
I mean, it might be entertaining for my enemies and for other people standing by who don't have a strong emotional tie to me, but from my perspective, randomly is just kind of like you're out, and then there's no conclusion. Like I want the arc. I want the character arc. I still haven't fallen from grace yet. I've said some dumb stuff, but I haven't fallen from grace. I have to completely fall from grace and then have a redemption arc, and then be the old wise Logan or Luke Skywalker or whatever archetype at the end, and then fade into the sun. Like I saved the Earth by flying a rocket into the sun or something. Not that would do anything. I'd probably die before I even got close to the sun. Just from UV alone.
Why do you need to be on the rocket? What, like, what's in this? Why are we attacking the sun? I mean, it's just...
It's poetic.
Most of that was like, oh yeah, that could be the way things go. But now if you just need to burn up in the sun, I don't know. I think you might be setting your expectations a little high. Do you have people that you're close with that you feel you differ wildly politically?
Let's see. Close with. Differ wildly. I think so. Like I haven't talked to them in a while, like regularly, but like we'll text each other and stuff, and occasional email and stuff. But I have conservative friends. I have anti-vax friends. I have racist friends, misogynist friends. Just kidding, not those two. But maybe if maybe I don't know it yet. But that would be funny if I had like the most racist friends ever, and they're like, "You're one of the good ones."
Yeah. I have.
No, I've conservative, middling conservative friends from way back that they've just kind of stayed the way they are, and I wouldn't change a thing about them. I get where they're coming from.
Yeah, I have. Like my brother-in-law is like, I'd say he's like leans fairly conservative. He's a bright guy. I just don't think he's thoughtful, but I just don't think that he cares much about politics or whatever, and just would rather not think that much about it or have that many conversations about. But anyway, he's pretty opinionated on things, and he says things that I'm like, sometimes, like I'm sure I do as well. But it's an interesting window into, because we were like best friends in high school, and I'm like, I wonder if it's just that I got out and traveled and met so many people and had so much life experience, because we were very, very similar. And then he stayed in town and, did like the regular life thing of marriage and
control variable.
Yeah.
Thank God for them, but also thank God for not being a control variable.
Yeah. And it's hard to travel so much and meet so many different people and not lean a little bit toward the progressive side. It's hard to just like be scared of out groups and different people and stuff when you've just met so many different people, And
looking at old pictures too, you can't help but wonder when you see like old pictures of protesting segregation, protesting gays, protesting women's rights. Like you can't help but try to draw a parallel. Like what's the equivalent of that now? And what am I worried about defaulting to, that it's like a gut reaction that you might come around to later?
Yeah, that right-wing authoritarian scale was fucking insane, considering that it was like made 20 years ago or given to people 15 years ago, and people were like testing near the middle. I was blown away by that.
Especially by the way the questions are worded. Yeah.
the world's gotten a lot better on a lot of those issues.
Obama
in just
and Hillary
15
Clinton
years.
were against gay marriage in 2011.
That's amazing.
Maybe not personally, but publicly. And I
Yeah,
understand
yeah.
that there's a game to be played and perhaps you can't show all
Right.
your cards at once. But the fact that there's videos of you can seeing them ask those questions, they're like, well, no, I'm not for the. And now it's like, it just seems obvious because once
Right.
you've gotten past a certain point, it's harder to get it back in the box. Not that you'd want it back in the box, but
Yeah, it's like once
out of
there's
the bag.
once there's not smoking indoors anymore, it's like, yeah, you could reinstate smoking indoors again, but it hasn't happened once for pretty good reason. Usually even people that fought against it a lot were like, yeah, it's better generally. I'm sure like a lot of those people wish there was like a bar they could go to or a special license or something like that you could go to a place and smoke inside when you wanted to, but the world's a better place.
It is, but you
without
can't help
smoking
but
inside.
you can't help but also miss it a little bit. Like I've never been a cigarette smoker, but when I watch old concerts from the 60s and 70s or even 80s, it's like, oh man, you could just smoke anywhere and it looked so cool. And
Yeah.
there was just a different vibe to society, and there's way more downsides than upsides, but you can't say there was no upsides. It just
Right. Yeah, cigarettes still do look pretty cool. They're not super cool when you're smoking them, but some people are like, wow, that person looks cool while they're killing themselves.
and it's a thing. It's like for the oral fixation, you're doing something,
Yeah, there's a lot
drawing
going
in,
on.
taking a drink.
Yeah. Drinking and cigarettes. Whew. Those go together real well. All right. You
Or
want to
in
get
the-
into this?
Oh yeah, or in the James Bond world where it's a shared thing, even if it's your arch villain, like cigarette, Mr. Bond, and you're still offering cigarettes to your enemy, like just one last one before I go. Or
that would be funny to offer someone gum or so I'm gonna kill you in a really insane way. Would you like a stick of gum first?
Hey, you got any gum?
All right, here we go. Getting into it. Politicalcompass.org. We're on page 3 of 6. And so the fourth one's going to be a bonus episode as well. All right. All people have rights, but it is better for all of us that different sorts of people should keep to their own kind. As I was praising how reasonable all the statements on this sounded before, keep to their own kind. Imagine saying that publicly. They put that in a study. I mean,
Also, what is your kind? Is it your gender? Is it your skin color? Is it your economic class? Is it your intelligence? Like, what is it? What is even kind? I mean, we're clearly both strong disagrees on this one.
yeah, I mean, I guess again, unless we like jump through hoops to find nuance within unless we write off the phrasing of
if
it,
we rearrange
and
the sentence
create
entirely.
if we erase the sentence and put a different sentence in, maybe we'll find some wiggle room for moderation here.
Imagine
But
you're
this
a
is-
black male cisgender straight drummer and you're
Okay.
30 and that's the only person you can hang out with from now on. You can't see your kids anymore, your wife or anything. Like, sorry, I gotta go hang out with my own kind
Your
now.
own kind. That's so nuts.
And then someone's left-handed in that group, and then they have to go hang out with only left-handed, black, cisgender, whatever long list I gave.
I mean, what are they trying to say here? Let's see if we can think of a better way of framing this. Because isn't the idea with any of these statements is that if it's done well, it's really capturing the full spectrum of political opinions, and most people are going to fall within the average. And I just can't imagine people saying, my conspiracy, conservative, racist, misogynistic friend that I finally just gave up on. Like, I just can't talk to you anymore.
Were they weren't actually racist, misogynist, right? You just threw those in for.
Oh
the
no,
flair?
they super
they are?
were. Yeah. They went through hardships in their life, and it turned them. They went from like super open-minded hippie to insanely dogmatic, like really
Weird.
yeah.
Neuroplasticity, man.
Yeah. But I think that if this was phrased in a way that about, like cultures being allowed to create their own laws or govern themselves, or an appreciation of diverse cultures or something. But that's not at all what this is saying, though.
Yeah, because I'm not saying make Chinatown illegal.
Rights.
Don't make Little Italy illegal. Don't make Armenian Town illegal. But
just don't go if you are. You aren't, don't go to Chinatown if you aren't Chinese. Imagine someone holding that view. It's fucking insane. All right. Well, let's see if the next one is better. We did a strongly disagree on that.
Oh, by the way, when Banana wrote out the highlights or the whatever it is, the timestamp codes for the authoritarian right-wing one, and she lists the questions, it's so funny because it sounds like, or at first glance, it looks like we hold those opinions rather than the questions are being asked.
Oh, man, that's a good note. Maybe we'll change that before it goes out.
Yeah, because just seeing the sentence is offensive to some people. Like, even if you put question mark behind it, it's...
Yeah, I mean, I had a hard time reading the statements out loud. And that's not like... I mean, it wasn't like a piece of propaganda. It was literally just a political attitude survey. All right. Good parents sometimes have to spank their children.
That's a little bit out of my my first instinct is no, but it's also out of my wheelhouse a little bit. I don't know about the science of it. I'm pretty sure that it's not good no matter what. I think the latest studies show that there's better ways of dealing with it, because on one hand you just spank for when the kid is looking at you wrong or just to keep them in line, and then on the other hand it's too hippie of parent, and then they call you by your first name all the time, and there's no boundary, there's no respect. It's all like, well, it's whatever they want to do. I don't want to tell Maddox what to do. Maddox is a free individual, and if he wants to hit other kids, then he needs to let his aggression out. And who am I to spank Maddox or to spank Brooklyn or to spank Jaden or Aiden or Caden?
There's you never hear a story like Maddox, though, and you never meet a Maddox in adult life that's like, I got all these issues. My parents were just like way too permissive and understanding and empathetic and just like catered to my every need and stuff, and it fucked me up. Like you hear the bad spank stories, and they'll stay with you. You remember, I mean, I got spanked a few times, and it's a memorable, scary thing to put a child through. Usually not for like, I can tell you this, and I love my dad. He's great. And it was like a cultural norm at the time, but I can tell you that I don't have a single memory of what I was ever like spanked over. you know, just remember the spanking. That's it.
Yeah.
That's like,
so it doesn't tie to, it's not a deterrent or anything like that. But seeing some people I know that are parents now and they've read all the books and are employing new methods of discipline and communication, I'm kind of blown away by it sometimes, at how like kids can respond to it and understand, and oftentimes they just want to be heard. A lot of them are monsters too. I mean, 2 and 3 year olds are monsters. There's no getting around that. But
well, you also just have this fucking shitty little roommate that's like a pain and stains your stuff. And, you know, I think a lot more of spanking has a lot more to do with a parent releasing frustration and like their own shit than it has to do with like some useful teaching tool. you know?
So I want to say strongly disagree, but also not all the way strongly disagree, because you might still be you might still be a good parent if you slip.
I agree with that. And I would say that probably you don't know any better, but I'm also not a parent and talking a bit out of school, but I put a disagree. I didn't put a strongly disagree.
Me too.
I mean, there was you know, just with like, speaking of Pink Floyd and Leave Those Kids Alone, like, obviously those guys were all messed up from a Catholic upbringing. You know, they all went to Catholic private school, and that was impactful.
Control.
But the idea of like hitting a kid with a ruler and stuff for like having their shoes untied and things like that, and that's what life was like for a long time. And that's definitely, you know, just again, looking back in time to draw connections and see like what panned out and what was on the right side of history.
My dad
was way off. That was way off.
My dad, growing up in Iran in the 50s, has stories that just make me cringe just hearing about it. Like getting in trouble and they put a pencil in the soft part of your hand and like push down on it really hard. And he's like, I can still feel it to this day.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
That's fucking horrible.
Yeah, it's barbaric.
Yeah.
Or like only being allowed to sleep on one side because of different rules in Islam and stuff like that, where like you're not allowed to sleep on your back or on this side. Like you just had to be facing this direction all night. Not that this is all of Islam or anything, but I'm referring to a specific thing that he was forced to do for a little bit.
You have to sleep facing east or something or other? Wow.
And you know,
what
don't really
if
realize
you roll in your sleep?
Then you get a pencil in your fingers or something, or a ruler in your ass. But yeah, I mean, I have to go refresh my memory. Not that I like hearing the stories. I mean, I don't not like hearing them. It just makes me cringe, and it gives me some gratitude. And I think part of the reason that me and my brother were never hit, or there was never even a hint of that. It wasn't like he raised his hand and like, no, I'm not going to do it. Like it wasn't even a possibility in our minds that we could get hit, which is very cool that we grew up in a place that we didn't have that fear. But I think him growing up with, having that kind of punishment made him realize like, oh no, I would never want to inflict that on anyone. I heard it skips a generation, so maybe I'll beat the shit out of my kids. Watch out, future Ramin Jr. and the third.
I don't
want to.
I was thinking about, you know, the military trains all these animals, or like the police. Have I talked about this before about the Skinner box? Skinner was
Skinner.
The Skinner box. And this is be lovely if people in YouTube comments cleared up any misunderstanding that I have about this. But so the Skinner box, where like testing rewards on pigeons and stuff like that, he got a lot of his early funding because he was using Pavlovian conditioning, and the military wanted to know, obviously was like very interested in how to condition people generally and things. And one of the ways that he got his funding was he was trying to make a pigeon guided missile. So a pigeon would like peck at different things to steer the missile.
And it would go towards, like, how would it know where to go?
I don't know, but I think they built it and tried it and tested it, and it was like working and stuff.
It feels
too.
like it could backfire so easily.
It does.
Like a female pigeon or something could swing by and it like totally loses all focus, and then it just starts heading back to your base.
In the war room to be like, I feel like that could backfire so easily.
It's such a Wile E. Coyote idea.
Yeah, it really is. But let me look this up. Can you imagine too? I don't know if there's like a little window in it, and I'm sure it's like moving too fast and everything. But can you imagine if you're on the ground and you see just like a little pigeon in the window on the bomb that's about to land on you? It's the last thing you see in life is a little pigeon with, I like to imagine that they have like
the aviator goggles.
The aviator goggles on too. And that's the last thing you say in life. I mean, that's a hoot. Like
that I would take as a random death.
Yeah,
I would take that over saying goodbye to my friends and family.
I bring it up because all of these animal they've trained seals, dolphins, obviously dogs, drug sniffing and other bomb sniffing dogs, various things. Rats, now they're training to do things. They've trained all of these animals to do and they've applied the same things, which is using rewards to train these animals to do this. They don't spank the fucking pigeon or dog or anything.
Using honey, not vinegar. Using the carrot, not the stick.
So why is it such an effective training tool for every other species except human? I simply don't think that is even possible. I think spanking, hitting, that sort of, a lot of that stuff is just frustration.
I think it's intuitive. I don't think it's, then rewards are counterintuitive, but the reptile brain like wants to just lash back, wants to give in to the anger, wants to unleash the frustration, but it's not thought out. Tonight it's spank night. I don't want to do it, but it's spank night. Has to happen.
Well, you do hear every fucking collection of shitty hack comedians be like, the problem today is you can't spank kids anymore. They're running wild. It's always, that perspective has always made me cringe a little bit. But
there is the trope of, the kids today are being brought up soft. When I was a kid, I was a latchkey kid. I was just dropped off. I didn't see my dad for 14 months, blah, blah, blah. And damn it, I forgot to turn the phone off. But the point of that was no point.
But they are getting soft.
Yeah, they are getting soft, but I think neoteny is kind of our...
Neoteny?
Neoteny is the retained infantile characteristics through adulthood. So the most obvious one is that we look like fetal apes. We're these hairless, pink. Not everyone is pink, but we're hairless at least, and losing muscle mass, bathing more, like putting flower scented stuff on us. Like when you look at a man from 500 years ago, like that is closer to the ape than we are, I guess. So we get more soft, more emotional, more in touch with our feelings, more compassionate. And we ultimately become the baby.
Some of it just might be what it looks like to watch a culture discovering more information and nuance and complexity. There's the what was the thing of some of the early PPE stuff and wearing masks and
PPE?
Gloves and stuff, personal protective equipment, masks and things. So there was back in like the late 1800s or something. It was this was I think this sparked early germ theory, was they were trying to figure out why one particular hospital had lots and lots of postmortem death in women.
The hand wash thing, right?
Yeah, it was just like, it was a show of doctors and surgeons and stuff would do everything. So you'd go and you'd do an autopsy and you'd play around with the cadaver for a bit. And it was a symbol of pride to be walking around in the halls with like guts everywhere. And if you were just clean, it's like, were you even doing anything today? You're just a lazy doctor if you aren't just covered in guts. And then you go in after digging through a corpse and then give birth, help a woman deliver a baby, and it caused issues. And to us that seems insane. At the time it was a norm, and I'm sure those doctors didn't take well to being told to wash their hands, or
didn't the guy kill himself
on. And
the inventor of washing your hands before delivering children was ridiculed, and as a result, I think committed suicide. I could be wrong about that.
True? That's
I think
amazing.
It's true. Yeah, I mean,
wow.
It's not uncommon for stories like that to have happened, but I'm pretty sure that is something I heard and remember.
That's incredible if that's true. The doctor who championed hand washing and briefly saved lives, Ignaz Semmelweis.
Oh, he's Pig Latin?
That's
Ignaz Le Slomonipe. What's his name?
What do you give me over under on me having pronounced that name correctly?
I'll give you 70% accuracy. But what is it again? Ixnay on the Ixnay?
Ignaz is his first name. How do you say that?
That's a gaming magazine. Cool. Ignaz.
Okay, we'll go with Ignaz. I mean, that's phonetic, certainly. I wouldn't be shocked if it wasn't pronounced that way.
Agnes.
And then...
like Agnes.
The last name is Semmellweis.
Semmelweis. Okay. But does it say whether he killed himself or not? I want it to be true because it's enough time has passed that he would have died naturally anyway. But something about...
But his research wasn't accepted until years after his death.
Which was caused by his own clean hands.
God damn it. Sorry, that I thought it would just come right up here. Death. What happened? Oh my goodness.
Lay it on us.
After trying to leave the insane asylum in 1865, Semmelweis was beaten and put in a straitjacket. After 2 weeks in the asylum, he died.
Why did he go to the insane asylum? Because he wanted people to wash their hands?
Died from blood poisoning in a wound that could have been sustained during the beating.
Oh, so he was beaten to death.
Like, and if they would have washed their hands before beating him, he wouldn't have gotten the poisoning, perhaps.
Okay, so I was wrong about the suicide thing. And maybe I'm thinking of a different doctor that no one listened to. And
maybe I'm looking up the wrong thing. Who knows?
Either way, wash your hands, kids. It's funny to think of the machismo behind, on one hand, it's like, mechanics. It's good to have your hands greasy. Like if your hands aren't completely, black and just dripping with oil, then you didn't actually fix that car. And then there's the cleanly route of, pride with cleanliness. I'm thinking of the story with Prince and how his chef, prepared all this food, and then one of the pots had a little smudge on it, and during a dinner party, and he just picked up the pot that had a smudge on it and brought it back to the kitchen and just put it down on the counter and just said no. and then walked away. And the guy just knew exactly what he meant already. Like, if everything was not impeccable, it was like, no.
That's well, sad end of the story. Okay. Over the years, Samuel Wise got angrier and eventually strange. There even been speculation that he developed a mental condition brought on by possibly syphilis or even Alzheimer's. And in 1865, he was only 47 years old.
That's ancient
and
back
committed
then.
to, yeah. Okay. Well, cheers to you, Samuel Wise, dude.
Baggins.
Ignaz. All right. Let's see. It's natural for children to keep from some secrets from their parents.
100%.
Yeah. I mean,
Strongly agree.
yeah. Yeah, that seems pretty natural. Possessing marijuana for personal use should not be a criminal offense.
100% yes. This test must be old.
100%. Yeah,
It should be a rewardable offense.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should be given, I don't know, a Slurpee or something if you're caught with a personal use amount of weed.
That would be a fun thing for police to start doing, is giving rewards out.
Have you seen the ice cream cop, like during the heat of all the police brutality protests?
No.
Like, I think some cops are like, no, see, some cops can be nice. And then they pull someone over, and I mean, obviously they're shitting themselves and they're terrified. And they're like, you're under arrest for driving without an ice cream cone on a hot day. And then they just pull out a little ice cream cone and give it to them while they're filming the experience and kind of twisting it on them. But my God, that's so terrifying, because some people are actually afraid that they could die in that moment. And then they just get some like 50-cent ice cream cone. But I get it.
Yeah.
I get everything. I get absolutely everything. Well, you're not just saying you're getting everything doesn't excuse it. I get that too. Humor is not a good excuse. I get that. And I get the opposite. And I get this. And I get that. I get it all. I literally stand outside of every single conceivable paradigm that's ever been conceived or will conceive.
That's so impressive. I'm just in awe of your standing in so many different dimensions.
I just want to burst into the Capitol, like not with the horns or the painted face or anything, but just be like, guys, I stand outside of all paradigms. I've got it all figured out.
I got it all
Let's
figured
listen to
out.
him.
Oh, guy that has it all figured out finally showed up. The prophecies were true. I went to visit Steve Gillespie and my assistant Rihanna, and they have this wonderful dog, Darwin.
Oh yeah.
And we were sitting outside on mushrooms, and Darwin barks at every single person that walks by their area. Every single person, always. And then there's this one guy in a car with an ice cream cart who's dressed like a lunatic. Who Darwin just like watches, just doesn't bark at, doesn't respond to. Just like, no, that guy's fine. Let him through. He's got like short jean shorts and like insane like a cowboy hat on, and like dressed in this crazy fashion while ringing a bell.
Threat level 0.
Nothing to worry about here. All right. The prime function of schooling should be to equip the future generation to find jobs.
Disagree.
Ooh, I'm also a disagree. Well, what were we talking about this on a bonus episode where the value of infusing art. No, I think this was a different part of this episode.
Yeah, I think this was
where
part
you
2.
you were way more like free market when it comes to art stuff, whereas I lean a little more in the I think that things should be publicly subsidized and there should be more.
The phrasing of the question kind of led me more in that way, where it was like taxpayers should be expected to fund arts such as theater,
like
museums, things like that.
Yeah.
On one hand, I do like that, but not at the priority of other things. Perhaps there's other things that should take priority over that, especially because who gets to decide which art is the one that wins the grant? Because they're not going to give it to everybody. So some theaters will lose and some will get the money. So I'd rather have it be a free market of like, may the best theater win. But I'm open about it. I could be proved wrong very easily if someone just had a little PowerPoint for me with some good transitions. And they're like, did you know Jimi Hendrix was funded by the government as a small theater grant? Not true, but you know, if he was.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I get that not everyone can be an artist and people need to do other things, but also people, there's plenty of people that have zero interest in being an artist and like actually don't mind, like work isn't their whole deal and they don't mind just like clocking in and out in a job that they just don't care that much about and they just go through the motions and then they live life outside of work. But I do think that it has, I mean, I'm sure there's people that have more important jobs than you do in terms of what is a priority, like a surgeon or like a paramedic or something like that. But I bet a lot of people like that get a lot of value from content like this or seeing like one of your memes on Instagram or whatever. I don't know. I think I would be curious,
not funded by the government too.
I'd be really curious to see if there was some way to quantify how much art and culture is emphasized in given countries. And then, because my guess is that the more artistic countries are, the kind of the better. That maybe just because they have the privilege to have more free time. I don't know what I'm talking about. But
I would love it to be that way. I would love for nothing to be funded but art because all the healthcare concerns are met.
Yeah.
Like we don't even need healthcare anymore because someone discovered the perfect nanobot or something, which is not something you discover. That would be weird. You just discover a nanobot. You didn't make it. And it just fixes everything.
What the heck is this little thing?
But in my head, it's like, okay, we've allocated 90% of the budget to healthcare, and then we're going to give 10% to this theater thing over here. In my head, I'm like, can't the theater maybe charge $2 extra for tickets, and you can give the healthcare that last 10%?
What about more murals in a city?
More murals in a city.
More murals. Yeah.
I don't care.
Just decide. You don't care.
No.
I'm voting way more murals. I want way more murals everywhere.
I love a good mural, but
you love a good what?
A good mural, but I don't.
Oh, you do.
But the funding government taxpayers thing, I don't, because maybe it ties to the subjectiveness of art, and taxpayers should not fund subjective stuff. They should fund objective stuff. Roads, heart transplants, eyelash extension surgery.
I mean, there's something special about what a lot of churches did through a period of time. If you've ever had the chance to visit Paris or whatever, I mean, most of it was like horrific labor practices and stuff, but my goodness, the end result was some of the most beautiful shit imaginable. And
I love that slavery is labor practices.
Yeah. Well, I don't know exactly. Like I don't know Notre Dame in terms of like it wasn't slavery. I think they just like treated
Just
their
slavery
artists really
adjacent.
poorly.
Hmm.
Yeah. Like they could not do that if they wanted to. They could do something else, but I don't know. I know it was built for cheaply and people were treated poorly, but have you been to Paris?
Oh yeah, or just once actually.
I mean, there's something very special about it just because it's just so, just anytime that the architecture in a city is really beautiful and creative, it just kind of, and that is like, that attracts commerce and tourism. It tends to make people just overall happier. And whereas like, you know, Detroit's been pretty focused on the basics for some time.
Motor City, baby.
and I don't know that it's necessarily served it well always.
Yeah. I mean, I'm
I
kind
think
of
Detroit's
hiding.
making a comeback, actually.
My answer is kind of a Weasley answer because I'm hiding behind like, well, put the money towards healthcare instead of the art. But I would love to be convinced otherwise, where it's like, no, we need to at least allocate 20% of the tax revenue towards the arts, because without that safety net, it does collapse. And you can see it here in history and here and here. And you can see these other times where it was funded, and it's what made Paris baguettes possible. Without that, the baguette was just like one slice of stale bread. But
yeah,
they
we
funded
need more
the arts,
baguette funding,
and they have,
for sure.
yeah.
But
yeah, of course I love art.
yeah.
Gray buildings, get out of here. Unless it's a gray building surrounded by beautiful rainbow artistic psychedelic buildings, then that's the art piece.
Yeah,
it stands out. But
so this one is insane. The next statement here is just it's a shame that I have to read this out loud and someone could just take a clip of this. But I just can't believe this is on a survey. People with serious inheritable, what was I trying to say? Inheritable. That's what the word is. Guy who loves evolution. People with serious inheritable disabilities should not be allowed to reproduce. Isn't that fucking crazy?
No, that's isn't that kind of Nazi-like?
That's it's
so
just like you
you're
just
not allowed
asked
to,
if we were Hitler in a survey.
I mean, to what extent? No, I mean, and is that guaranteed? Like, is that if you have a certain disability, is that even ever guaranteed that your children will have it? I'm not even sure what because Moshe Kasher's parents are deaf and both the children are not deaf. So I don't think deafness is inheritable. One controversial thing I heard was deaf parents wanting to make their not deaf kid deaf so that they fit in. That one seems.
You don't.
I don't like that one. Maybe it's because I like sound, but no. Otherwise, then no. People with inherited disabilities should be able to do whatever they want, except not subscribe to our Patreon. That's what they shouldn't be allowed to do. But other than that, everything else is allowed.
So go get freaky out there, disabled. We're rooting for you.
What do we strongly disagree?
I strongly disagree. The most important thing for children to learn is to accept discipline. Kind of an interesting one, actually.
Maybe not the most important, but I'd put myself in, there's only 4. Because discipline does not mean authority, but I think discipline is a very good lesson. And it doesn't mean like, you got to work out 4 hours a day. It has nothing to do with working out, has nothing to do with anything, but just discipline as a tool, much like patience. I think they go hand in hand. Yeah, discipline and patience are good, even though the word turns people off. But at its root, I'll agree.
I think I have to
gains.
be and agree as well. I mean, this is one of those statements where if I was talking with someone else, like the person who believes that everything went to hell because we don't spank kids as much as we used to, I would, framed against that sort of light, I would maybe be a disagree, but
what's higher? Kindness, maybe. Kindness outweighs discipline, but discipline is probably second.
Man, I would love some discipline.
Discipline rules, like,
yeah,
whether it's restraining from bad behavior or pursuing good habits. I mean, who doesn't want a good dis? I'll get an extra large dis to go.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Okay. There are
anything learned too. I mean, I'm stuck on this discipline thing, but anything
you make a lot of art about it.
Yeah, because especially as a kid, it's so easy to get frustrated trying anything. You pick up a guitar, you try to play the piano. I suck. I'll never be good at this. And you shut it off from your brain. I can't draw. The thing I drew looks ugly. You have to maintain that discipline to get anywhere, especially as a kid, to learn that lesson of reiterating it. But I'm just saying the same thing over and over again. So
yeah, I wish that my education and what I would hope that today's or the future of education, there is a lot more emphasis on explaining small incremental gains and the how experience and mastery comes, and it just never quite felt like that. As I was growing up, it felt like you were either a natural at kickball or like a natural athlete or whatever, or you weren't, and that's where you were in life. And that's maybe wrongly, maybe people tried to say things differently, but
I told you about the flute thing, right? Where I wanted to play flute. This was in Canada because there was no orchestra in the school, so I had to join the band, and we were choosing instruments, and drums and stuff was all taken already, so I couldn't do that. I'm like, I want to play flute. And then the band teacher took the 5 people that wanted to play flute and looked at their lips and is like, no, 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 yes, no. And just based on lip shape decided like, this person is probably going to be the best at it, so you get to be it.
Really?
I didn't get it. No, so I had to be saxophone. And then we moved to Texas later.
Lips.
No. Maybe I did have Fruit Loops, but they didn't let me, they didn't give me a chance. I didn't even get to blow in the shit once, but who cares? I'm not sad about it.
Do you think that people that don't have flute lips should be able to reproduce?
No, of course not. How are we going to get a master race when there's people with non-flute lips?
So this is kind of a goofy one. There are no savage and civilized people. There are only different cultures.
Agree.
Regular agree?
I don't know enough about all cultures. Perhaps there is like a savage culture, but even then, like they eat all their babies, and they like their women, the women's mouths are taped shut. And like how far like could you have a really really oppressive culture that's like, maybe it's just three dudes who've hijacked this community and they've created that culture. And but if we're looking at the big picture, I'd have to say there's not.
I think I'm putting
because even when you look at the old child sacrifice Incan Aztec things, like part of it you're like, ugh, and then other parts you're like, it's a good culture. It's got stuff that we're lacking, but also they seem to be a little meaner to the elderly, to the women, especially the elderly women. Like the elderly women had no place in society. Not Aztec, Inca. I don't know about those specifically, but just ones that I read about. of that time.
Hmm.
So maybe there are, but not. What can you reread it?
Sure. There are no savage and civilized peoples. There are only different cultures.
Agree.
I think I'm putting a strongly agree. You want a regular agree?
Oh, but I kind of want to be strongly. Maybe I am strongly because if I can't name one, then.
Well, it just seems.
Even spider culture seems like savage, but to spiders, it's not.
I mean, certainly there's people in groups that feel to me like there is just a lot more appreciation for, you know, like the reptilian type of like trusting your gut, that sort of thing. And because that's what I think of when I think of savage, is just, you know, kind of lacking impulse control.
What about removing women's clitoris without their consent?
Oh, that's pretty fucking savage. Yeah, that's awful.
Yeah, they don't like it. They don't want it. Maybe there's a couple that like it, but I doubt it.
Yeah.
Maybe that puts me at an agree.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, I'm gonna put an
someone's
agree
gonna
for
stand
the
up
clits.
for the clit. Who's gonna save the clits?
I'm gonna put an agree specifically for the clits.
Yeah, come on, stand up for them.
What happened where people got anti-clit? Like, that is a sad path to go down.
Because women shouldn't enjoy anything about sexuality. It's about keeping them as just birthers, machines.
But it's also easy to, you know, I guess why I was at first strongly agree is because on any question like this, even if you do think of some other group as savage, you're always going to put yourself in the like civilized category, like and it is. I mean, it's a huge part of history is like hysteria in the 1900s, where it was women had this hysteria stuff, which was just horny. They were just horny. They weren't supposed to they weren't supposed to experience pleasure. It was the invention of the vibrator is all from this. There's a good
Dr. Hitachi or whatever the guy is. Hitachi is different. That's the current vibrator.
It's this woman, Rachel Mann, I think.
Or even, Christopher Columbus. That's savage. Go read what he did.
Yeah.
Or any colonial stories. Like, I started the examples with, the more primitive cultures, but the ones that are, like you said, the ones you think are civilized are actually the savages, even though they call the other ones savage. Perhaps they are the savage ones. The ones calling the other ones savage are the savage. He who smelt it, dealt it, culture-wise.
that was, what a crazy period of time where you would go into your doctor to get finger banged, which there would be like lines around the block too. And then the demands were, because Freud started off, I believe, assisting with some hysteria, and I think he
just held the lips open, and then the other doctor did the fingering.
I know Freud wasn't good at it and got frustrated, and that's why he got like his really fucking insane ideas about how like a clitoral orgasm is immature and like a sign of something wrong with you. I don't want to. I can't Google it. Oh, that's what it is. I thought of it. The technology of sex.
Ooh.
Of sex. That's someone I should get on my podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's not a robot, right?
Technology
from Small Wonder.
I thought that was the book. Oh, The Technology of Orgasm
Even better.
by Rachel Maines, not Mans. I was close.
Rachel Maines.
Technology of Orgasm is it's a pretty quick-ish read.
History
too.
of
Very
vibrator?
entertaining. It's let's see what it says.
Because technology, you always think of metal, electricity, tools, that kind of thing.
Yeah, The Technology of Orgasm, Hysteria, the Vibrator, and Women's Sexual Satisfaction. Yeah, it's a good book. And you'll get to see like the first vibrators. It was like this huge thing on a pole and had like a bike chain and stuff. But they made them because they were so exhausted. They were just like sick of fingering women all day, every day.
Like
And
Elvis.
so-
Like Elvis would pay women, like, because there would be lines of women waiting to have sex with Elvis, and he would just be exhausted, and he would just be like, "You can just tell people that we did it."
Really?
Yeah, there's something like that, and I think he was like very afraid of penetration. Also, he had like weird hangups about that. Love peanut butter, not into the penetration, or at least not in all instances.
That is.
I hope I'm not wrong about
condoms
that,
back
because I've been
then.
wrong about a lot of like history things today where I'll bring up the
You
story
think so?
about. I think the Elvis one is
I
true
bet-
though.
Yeah, I bet Elvis hated penetration. You know, who likes penetration? That is weird to
Freud.
hate penetration. But other things he like, I don't know. All right, so here's one. Those who are able to work and refuse the opportunity should not expect society's support.
Those who are able to work and don't.
And refuse the opportunity should not expect society's support.
Disagree.
I'm going to put and agree with a caveat that I also believe in like a 20 to 30 hour full-time work week. I don't think our regular work schedule is all that productive or right. And if we're building all of this amazing technology, not just for orgasms, but to make everything that much more efficient and mass produce all this shit, it just doesn't feel as necessary to. The whole point of progress should be so that we work less hours in a week.
Oh yeah,
Not more. And so,
but if you're
I'm in agree, but I don't think full-time employment should be 40 hours a week.
Oh, for sure not. And it's crazy that there had to be strikes to get weekends.
Yeah.
Like when you look at the history of work, like there used to not be weekends and they had to strike and then they won the rights of it. So it's interesting when you see, I don't know, any strike or protest today. It's like, what moment in history are we in that you should not cross?
And that was like religious rights too. And then that's like in a way another form of control, although it's like a social gathering and there's a lot to experiencing a vacation or a holiday or whatever as a whole community or world or whatever, and everyone has this shared experience. But a lot of it was also religion being like, okay, and then this is your day off from work to devote your life to this. It's just like, that's just more work.
Yeah.
Just a different kind of work.
But if you're not physically able to work and you still don't want to, I think it still speaks to a deficit. Maybe like you're depressed. Maybe you don't see anything worth doing. Like I don't know. I think everyone should be allowed to just play. And it's a weird logic because if you ask me how would that play out in a society, I don't know. It might not be a good policy. It might collapse. But ultimately, I don't. I'd love to see if there was pure honor system where everyone can go take from the tray and no one is making sure, like, are you contributing to society before you take? Like, how would it work out if the people that wanted to work worked and then the others didn't? Maybe it would just collapse in 2 days.
Maybe. I mean,
I
it's
know
a
that's a
tough
very
call.
leftist take, and it's virtue
Well,
signaling and stuff, but
I mean, I would want to see universal basic income implemented and see what productivity does. Does productivity go up or down? That should be a pretty easy thing to measure.
yeah.
I would like to try it. If we did it for, like, I think you'd need to do it for a couple of years for people to get used to it.
I think
But
it
if you
does
did
go
it for a
up
few years,
on small
I think
scales.
I mean, so many of the best, like Wikipedia and a zillion other inventions were like pet projects people had, that wasn't their main job or anything. And then this is what they would tinker with on the week. There's a lot of hobbies out there that change the world, that turn into inventions, that innovate, and like you said, play, I think is really important. I mean, I don't think that I've moved on this, and probably you haven't as well. So you're a disagree and I'm an agree, but this is one of those, this is another one where I think that I'd be neutral, maybe, if that was an option.
Me too.
But yeah, I don't like, I'll tell you how it feels from my perception, that is, we all see life in the way that we want to see life and seek confirmatory evidence. It seems like a lot of the people that are the most concerned about, oh, no one will do anything if you just pay them, seem to be the biggest users of those benefits. It's like the most conservative areas that are like the most free market and everything are also the highest users of social services.
Really?
They're the highest users of welfare and everything else. So it's, at the end of the day, it's like, well, that's a cool philosophy, but I guess I can totally, it feels intuitive and I can see your point of view, but it doesn't seem to be working. That's what you vote on, the very thing you vote to eliminate, the very fucking check that you're, and people that I know that say that are also people that are like, usually haven't found a career, and just have a job. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I think there's, like I said, I think there's a lot to just going to work, collecting a paycheck, and focusing on the rest of your life, and that being
nothing wrong with that.
Life is, but yeah, I feel a lot of that. Like, I know someone that's like always up in arms about, oh, everyone's just going to sit around and play video games and stuff. And then they were laid off for COVID and they just sat around and played video games the entire time. It's like, yeah, well, that's what you
projecting.
Would do. Yeah, it's what
projecting
you would
like
do.
A motherfucker.
Like, a lot of people wish that they had time for like new hobbies or a new business venture, and lots of things that certainly would add value, and a lot of people that would otherwise be contributing quite a bit more to society are run ragged by like minimum wage jobs and stuff too. So it's,
yeah, I mean, and all of these are so just our base gut opinion or based on what we've read or feel, but one of the main rebuttals that always comes up is, well, yeah, this policy feels nice, but what are the second and third order consequences of it being actually implemented? And that's always like, okay, I don't really know how it will pan out, but what's the harm in trying it? At least trying it at a small scale and then scaling it up, like UBI for 1,000 people community, then 10,000 person community, then 100,000 person community. And then maybe you start to see what the scaling problems are once it hits a certain number and that kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, maybe just, I mean, it wouldn't be that hard to, just give out more on top of what we do now and just see if that makes an impact. If it's, because there's already people that are collecting welfare and everything else. So it'd be interesting to see what and even if it was just at a lower bracket, I don't know. I feel like it does sort of need to be everybody, because you also don't want there to be an incentive to not, like, you know, if the middle class don't get UBI or whatever, then it's like, well, if I get this free check for doing nothing. But if everyone had their needs met, I think that you'd live in a world that's healthier and more productive.
For sure. It is weird when unemployment pays better than some jobs that you can get. And so why would anyone be incentivized to go work at a seafood restaurant and smell like fish all day for half of what they could get for having fun at home? How could you judge anyone for that?
Right. All right. When you are troubled, it's better not to think about it, but to keep busy with more cheerful things.
Disagree, but not strong disagree, because I like optimism. I think as someone who defaults to depressive thinking, I need to like double down on the optimism, but also there's, you know, spiritual bypassing, toxic positivity, sweeping it under the rug. You should address your problems and look at them, but not dwell in them. So that's why I'm just regular disagree.
What were you on the should not expect society support? You were disagree?
Yeah, just regular dis.
All right. Regular disagree as well. Okay, so you're disagree on that. Yeah, I'm what am I there? I think I might be a strongly disagree. I mean, only because going back to the utility of things, it's like, I think that the only way out is in sometimes. And I think that you need to face yourself and face the inner obstacles and learn better to navigate yourself and the world, and keep busy with more cheerful things. I mean, that's totally like that's like my upbringing for sure. That was like I could see this embroidered on something.
Think of Christmas, Shane. Christmas is only 8 months away. Start thinking about that.
But yeah, I'm a big fan. When you're troubled, it's better not to think about it, but to keep busy with more cheerful things.
Basically, just the lyrics to "Don't worry, be happy."
Yeah.
When you worry, you make it double. Don't worry. Be happy. God, I love Bobby McFerrin.
Is that who that was?
Of course it's who it was. Are you kidding me? One of the first records I ever touched and had. I think it's the first album I knew was an album. Like, there was a big record in our house. There's like Michael Jackson's Thriller, and there's the big Bobby McFerrin, Don't Worry, Be Happy.
He's 71.
Really?
Yeah. I is he still putting out music?
Yeah, but I think he's so high level that I don't think he even thinks in terms of planning stuff out. And I heard on this interview he did with Questlove how he goes out there just blank. Like, he doesn't have a plan when he does a live show for like 30,000 people. He just goes out there with nothing and then just starts improvising and looping it, gets the audience involved, and then grows it from there. But just going up blank, Rory Scovel style, just nothing.
That's scary. Interesting. I bet he loops a lot of "Don't Worry" in there. I bet it's a lot of riffs on that.
Richard Bona, the bass player, he said that there's what people often call improvisation is actually repetition of patterns that you've already explored. So when you're improvising, it's like, yeah, you touched on that in the bedroom while practicing at one point. So not all of it is just completely brand new out of the blue. It's a little echo of a riff that you've already explored. So a little bit of both. There's spontaneity and there's also what you think is spontaneity. In stand-up comedy, you see it with crowd work. Like, it's like, oh, how did he come up with that on the spot? It's like, because I had a similar incident 6 months ago, and that's a retooling of what I would have said to that person.
Some people just look at a list of occupations and just write jokes for them. And I'm like, all right, when someone's a plumber, I got just the thing. All right. So first generation immigrants can never be fully integrated within their new country.
I don't know. I feel like my parents did it. I think they're integrated. What's missing? Is it like you have to eat hot dogs and hamburgers for every meal? You have to wear a baseball cap?
Again, if this question was like, it is often difficult for first generation immigrants to fully integrate within their new country, I'd be like, sure, I could see that. I've traveled. It would be hard to integrate to like moving to France a little bit. I would love to do it. I'm sure it wouldn't be without its challenges. But the way that it's
je m'appelle
phrased,
Shane, j'aime le science, j'aime le ballon du piquet, j'aime...
French is so impressive sounding. It's crazy. Everyone should learn French just to be able to do that. But it says first generation immigrants can never be, it's so definitive,
yeah,
be fully integrated within their strong disagree. Okay. I mean, I feel like I kind of want to put a disagree to like, but again, a lot of these I'm like, well, what are they really trying to say? So that I can say something more. I don't know if anyway, I'm a strongly disagree on that.
As humans, we're just adaptable as fuck. Like you can like live in a volcano, not instantly, but I bet someone could eventually build up the Tony Robbins foot calluses of living in a volcano.
Yeah, we should get a studio in a volcano. That'd be awesome.
It's the main form of suicide I think about when I do suicidal ideation, because there's no cleaning up to do, and there's no bad smell, and there's probably no pain.
So good.
Also, there's no evidence, because if there's no cameras around, like where did he go? So it's like he went missing. Yeah. And it's kind of funny too, and it's got the Lord of the Rings tied to it.
Sort of funny. Gosh. Well, just updated my suicidal ideations. Huh. Okay. That's a good one. That's a really good one.
Like plus, wood chipper now number 2.
There's also something in me that wants to experience just like an insane amount of pain for like a second.
By the time you can reflect on it, you're already gone.
Yeah.
That was the most painful. It's just blank.
It would be like, I have an odd relationship with pain, because sometimes pain is just like, it's crazy. It's just, the pain can be so intense that it's like, how is this even possible? I remember I had the ayahuasca trip that sent me in a manic episode. It was like, it was the best trip that I've ever had. By the way, I just like never kind of fully came down from it, but it was.
You're still in it?
Yeah, I'm still in it.
Nice. I'm one of those characters. I'm a character in that world.
It was. Yeah, it was just a feeling of. It felt like I was tapped into all of the suffering of humanity, like all of it, all at once. It felt like I was like every homeless person with a drug addiction having the worst day of their life, like all at the same time. And it was crazy that my brain could even experience such suffering. But it was so much that it was it was just like a cartoon. It was like comical how intense I was suffering. And
You
then
were the Christ.
I did the purge thing and saw everything I was ever meant to see. And it was exactly every ayahuasca cliche that I was like, yeah, whatever. It happened. It was, yeah. But I mean, I have a lot of different takes on that about consciousness exaggerating things and it fucking with psychedelics fucking with your stomach a lot.
Yeah.
And so consciousness just kind of coming up with like really exaggerated stories of what's going on in your body.
Feels real though.
It feels so real, yeah.
And have we explored the idea of there's something to the likes of there's more potential neural connections in your brain than there is particles in the whole universe. So you can like simulate the feeling of being the pain of every single suffering entity in the universe, even if you're not actually doing it. The capability of simulating it is in there.
Yeah. Yeah, I was looking up some of those fun facts recently about there's like 80 billion neurons in the brain or whatever. It was equivalent to stars in the Milky Way. I think there's 4 times the stars in the Milky Way that there are in the brain is what the recent estimate was. But I was like, did they just get people that were really good at those guessing like the jelly beans? Like that's what those things are there for. And if you just get it dead nuts, they're like, we have a job for you. How many neurons does that look like to you?
Well, the key is to look at it from this angle, then the other angle, and then
cut
you
it into pieces. Yeah.
Yeah. I was never that
It's
good at
just
that.
Super guessers.
It's always
I feel like,
way more or way less than you'd think.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. How do I rate myself on the jar full of random quantities game? I bet I'm average.
Or like when you think of a toilet flushing and it's like every time you flush the toilet, it's 4.8 gallons of water or whatever. And then you think about a gallon of milk and you're like, really? It's 4 milks worth of water?
Yeah.
Some like weird how like volume can trick you because I don't know, adds up quick.
All right. What's good for the most successful corporations is always ultimately good for all of us.
Of course. Everything that is good for a corporation benefits humanity entirely, no exceptions. Actually, I'm strongly disagree on this. So the question says, what's good for the corporation is good for all humanity? No, that's a strong disagree. Oftentimes it's the opposite. It tends to eat human rights a lot of the time.
Yeah. I'm big into effective regulations and policies.
Yeah, I think we visited that in the first part of this.
Yeah.
That's the first question, actually. Should transnational corporations focus on human rights or on the bottom line or whatever the answer was?
And again, if a listener is like, well, the politicians are all corrupt, and like, well, the answer to that is more policy. It's better laws. It's creating. We should be governing how things are governed as well. It's like there's just no. It's unfortunately. It's policy all the way down or up. Like one way or another, you need it.
Yeah,
it's
and I
weird,
understand
it's
that.
weird to even hear myself saying that because I'm like, I'm such a rebel and everything in so many ways. But it's still my issues with things that don't make sense. It's not with the idea of policies.
Yeah, And with policy or over policying, you tend to think of, well, then it becomes a bureaucracy and then things move slow. And so that's its own problem. But if you thought of it more like software, where adding another 100 lines of code is not going to slow down the exe of making that thing run, then it's fine to just add more code because there's always going to be new. If statements, more for loops to be added, more special scenarios. I mean, what they're trying to do with self-driving cars, that's all about more policies needing to be added.
Right.
It's like not as simple as just drive here and then it's like you got to avoid this, but what if you have to avoid two things at the same time? What if that's an inanimate object and that's a living person? What if all these different
I like this thing that you're on. What do you think about what about a piece, something having to do with we're always just adding more code?
That could be
something like that.
Yeah.
Something in there.
The software always needs to be updated, something like that.
No, well, we can talk about it afterwards. We should probably wrap up-ish.
Are we on the fourth page?
This might be like a 6-part.
That's too much. That's its own show.
I know.
Maybe the fourth one we have to finish it, even if it's a 3-hour episode.
Well, should we go through?
We'll give our producer some more money.
Yeah, our editor is like, I mean, we aim for 90 minutes and always go over, but that's just extra amount of time that our editor needs to spend making like awesome highlights and doing stuff like that. And listeners might not necessarily like a 3-hour show. And so that's why we've made those choices in terms of time. Should we do how about we do one more, move on to the page, and then we will have done half of it, and then we'll just burn through the other half in a bonus episode.
Speed chess.
That makes sense, right?
With the clock. Yeah, we'll have a clock for speed chess on the next one.
Yeah, because it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, about 18 per page. So we'll just do the math and figure out how many minutes we can devote to each one, and I'll just
how many pages left though?
3 pages.
Okay.
After this next question. No broadcasting intuition, however independent its content, should receive public funding.
Isn't NPR public funding?
Mm-hmm.
Then strongly disagree.
I'm going to strongly disagree as well. And we already had kind of this art conversation and gone back and forth. But this is, again, when people are like, what is your political attitudes? What I like about this is it's just, well, depends on the topic. Give me the exact context and give me the details, because this is, this is a slightly different, you did a strongly disagree. This is a slightly different answer than you had for the art and museum one.
Because it says
and they're related, but they're different. They're different concepts.
Yeah. And it said no broadcast. So it was an extreme. Yeah. Whereas the other one was like taxpayers should be expected to. But yeah, wording is so much of it, huh?
It really is. I'm surprised these aren't worded better. Maybe we'll do a.
What if we made one and we become the new authority?
I was just thinking that. Well, there could be a fun app or something that we could build that's stuff like this. That'd be pretty simple.
What if we healed the divide? Like we're the two people that healed the divide.
I never even thought about that before. Should we heal the divide?
Let's heal it. Let's heal the divide.
Yeah.
There's so much division in this country. We should heal it.
I think people would be like, I think some people would be like, you ever miss the divide? You ever saw? No, I know it's like peaceful here and everyone like gets along and has reasonable conversations, but I don't know. There's something about the divide. I just didn't appreciate it for what it was.
Yeah, it just had that extra. Just had that umami, kind of like indescribable it factor, that star quality.
All right, we'll bust out all of the rest of them in the November 1st monthly bonus episode, and it'll be speed chess.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Looking forward to that.
That's cool because they just started getting kind of redundant too, so it will be good to speed it up a little bit. Awesome. Well, if you guys want to check out more of what we do, as always, plug in our Patreon. Not to beat you over the head with it, but this one especially, this right-wing authoritarian scale that we did, it's worth it just to hear the statements, which are insane, are like the craziest ones that we read today, but even more so. And then we had a lot of fun laughs along the way too, just because some of them are so ridiculous and over the top. So that's how we're funded. That's how we pay for this, is by giving you bonus content that you can show your support for on Patreon. So thank you, Void's Visionaries, Sweet Honey Bears, those very fancy Comante de Buffons, and future lunatics. You might be saying so far, but I see a future lunatic in at least one of you one day. So yeah, check that out. Patreon.com/mindunderpod. And I think we're good. Do you have anything you wanted to add?
No, just reiterating the Patreon. It really helps us a lot and helps us pay the staff even more so that they don't have to continue drinking their own urine out of the jars. And we appreciate all your support. Which is what they do. Yeah.
And we have merch and stuff too. So you can check out the Mind Under podcast. I shouldn't write it off like that. We have the best merch in the game because it's a podcast with an incredible artist.
Thank you.
And we have, so we put out better merch than
anyone,
than anybody
in the whole world.
Name a podcast with better merch. Put it in the comments on YouTube.
And we'll report it.
If you can't think of one, go and get yourself some merch, because ours is the best. All right. Until next time.
Keep on salivating, honeys. Ding.